Have you ever met someone who seemed untouched by time? While others slow down, forget, and fade, there are a rare few who remain sharp, vibrant, and full of life, even as the candles on their birthday cake stretch into the triple digits. What's their secret? Good genes? Luck? Or is it something we can learn? Meet Dr. John Barron. He wasn't a celebrity. You wouldn't find him on magazine covers. But behind hospital doors, in quiet early mornings, and in the lives of thousands he saved, Dr. Barron became a legend. He lived to be 104 years old, and until the age of 95, he was still putting on his surgical gloves, walking into the operating room and mentoring the next generation of doctors. He didn't chase youth. He earned vitality. No anti-aging creams, no expensive supplements, just a life built on powerful choices, consistent habits, and a deep, unshakable sense of purpose. In this video, we uncover his 7 timeless principles for living a long, healthy, and meaningful life, because maybe, just maybe, the secret to staying young isn't about avoiding age, it's about embracing life every single day. Let's begin. It happened on a stormy night during the war. Dr. John Barron wasn't yet a heart surgeon. He was a young Navy medical officer stationed on a destroyer near the Philippines. That night, chaos struck. His captain had fallen, badly injured. Barron rushed to help, his instincts screaming that something was deeply wrong. A rigid abdomen, signs of internal trauma. He begged the higher-ups to authorize emergency surgery, but they hesitated, and by the time they acted, it was too late. The captain died. Not because he couldn't be saved, but because no one acted fast enough. That moment haunted John. It didn't break him, it forged him. He made a silent promise that night. I will become the kind of doctor who never hesitates, who never lets someone die because others wait too long. That vow became his compass. He dove into years of intense training, extending his residency just to learn emerging chest surgery techniques. In an era when open-heart surgery was still new and terrifying, John leaned in. He studied, practiced, failed, learned, and pushed further. Not for fame, not for fortune, but because a man died and he couldn't forget. And sometimes the pain that cracks our hearts is the very thing that opens us to our life's true purpose. Dr. Barron didn't find his calling. It found him in a moment of loss, and from that moment forward he never looked back. Most people retire at 65. Some coast through their final years counting the days and dollars. But Dr. John Barron was different. He didn't work because he had to. He worked because he loved it. He performed his final surgery at 74. But even then, he didn't truly step away. For the next 2 decades, he stayed in the operating room, not holding the scalpel but guiding younger hands, mentoring, teaching, watching each student grow into a healer. When asked why he kept going, he smiled and said, I picked 95 as a nice round number to retire, but honestly, I was having too much fun to stop. That joy, so rare, so real, is what fueled him. He wasn't just a doctor, he was a man on fire with purpose, and science backs him up. Psychologists Howard Friedman and Leslie Martin studied thousands over 8 decades in the Longevity Project. Their findings: people who live with purpose, who stay productive, curious, and engaged, tend to live significantly longer, not because of magic, but because of meaning. Purpose lowers stress. It sharpens the mind. It keeps the heart beating strong, not just physically, but emotionally. Dr. Barron was proof. He found the thing that made him feel alive, and he gave himself to it, day after day, decade after decade. So here's the question for you. What lights you up? What would you do even if no one paid you? Because maybe the true secret to longevity isn't just about living longer. It's about loving longer. He met her in the hospital corridor. He was a young surgical resident, focused, composed. She was a nursing student, bright, kind, with laughter that softened even the coldest clinical wards. Her name was Clara. Dr. Barron still remembered the day he knocked on her door with a bouquet of wildflowers and 2 tickets to the opera. I thought he was too serious at first, Clara would later say, smiling. But when I saw the flowers and I knew he had a soft heart, they married within a year. Together, they raised 5 children, not in a city apartment, but on a peaceful 40-acre apple orchard tucked away in Loma Verde, just miles from the hospital. He'd wake up at 5 a.m. for surgery, then come home to prune trees, pick apples, and sit on the porch with Clara as the sun dipped behind the hills. Their love was quiet, steady, and unshakable, and it may have been one of the greatest factors behind his longevity. Study after study has proven that strong social and family connections are essential for long life. People with close, supportive relationships are not only happier, they're healthier. Emotional support protects the heart. Shared laughter lowers stress hormones, and meaningful connection boosts the immune system. Dr. Barron didn't just invest in medicine. He invested in love. And when he finally chose to retire, not because he had to, but because he wanted more time with Clara and the grandkids, he said it felt like the greatest reward of all. Because in the end, it wasn't the surgeries or the accolades that mattered most. It was the orchard, the porch, the touch of her hand, and the family that kept his heart beating long after the last operation. Most people search for energy in coffee cups and energy drinks. Dr. John Barron found his strength somewhere else, where the world was still quiet and the sky barely lit. Every morning, even past the age of 100, he rose at 5 a.m., not out of habit, out of choice. Before anything else, he'd drink 3 tall glasses of water, his way of telling his body, "I'm ready for the day." Then he'd step outside, breathe in the crisp air, and welcome the silence. But more than water and sunrises, Barron respected the greatest healer of all, sleep. He never compromised it. 8 to 9 hours every night, no excuses, no apologies. While the world praised hustle and sacrifice, he chose restoration, and science agrees with him. Studies from Harvard and the journal Nature Communications have shown that consistent sleep schedules protect your heart, slow down aging, and even sharpen memory. In contrast, poor sleep shortens telomeres, the caps on your DNA, accelerating cellular aging. Those who sleep well live well. Those who rise early live longer. Dr. Barron's secret wasn't some exotic herb or mystery serum. It was discipline, rest, rehydrate, rise early, repeat. He often said, "The body heals when you rest, not when you run." In a world that glorifies burnout, he chose balance. And perhaps that's the greatest form of wisdom, knowing when to work and knowing when to simply be still. Dr. Barron never owned a gym membership. He didn't count reps or track macros. And yet well into his 90s, his posture stayed straight, his steps steady, his mind razor sharp. His secret? Movement with meaning. While others sweated through workouts, they hated, Dr. Barron found joy in the rhythm of life. He mowed his own lawn, climbed stairs multiple times a day, spent hours tending the apple trees on his orchard, raking, digging, walking, breathing. To him, exercise wasn't a chore. It was living. Stanford researchers once discovered that climbing stairs 20 times a week can reduce the risk of heart disease by nearly 46%. Dr. Barron didn't need that study to prove what he already knew. His body stayed young because it moved. Not in a frantic race to get fit, but in steady harmony with daily purpose, he often said. "If I sit too long, I can feel the years catch up, but when I move, they fall behind." Even past 100, he drove himself to the grocery store, tended his yard, pulled weeds, and every action said one thing: "I'm still here, still useful, still alive." In a world chasing six-pack abs and fad workouts, Dr. Barron quietly showed that longevity doesn't come from pushing harder. It comes from moving consistently, not just to change your body, but to honor it. There's a place nestled in Southern California where people live longer than almost anywhere else on Earth, a place where 100 isn't rare and vitality is the norm. That place is Loma Verde. It's not just a town, it's a blue zone, one of only 5 regions in the world where people consistently reach 90 and beyond, free from chronic disease, full of life, and it's where Dr. John Barron called home. Here, people don't just live, they thrive, and it's no accident. Their way of life is different. Most residents are part of a faith-based community, Like Dr. Barron, many are Seventh-day Adventists who treat health as a spiritual duty. They rest deeply every Sabbath. They eat whole plant-based foods. They avoid alcohol, smoking, and excess. And most of all, they believe in purpose, in community, and in the sacredness of the body. The result? Men here live up to 7 years longer than the average American man. Women even more. Dan Buettner, the longevity researcher who coined the term blue zones, found that their lifestyle mirrored the original biblical diet in Genesis 1:29, plant-based, natural and nourishing. But it's not just about food, it's about community, connection, daily walks with neighbors, deep conversations, laughing with grandchildren, purposeful prayer, slowing down, breathing. Dr. Barron didn't just adopt this lifestyle, he embodied it. And in doing so, he proved that long life isn't just about avoiding death. It's about building a life worth living every single day. So maybe it's not where you live, but how you live. And in Loma Verde, they live like time itself has a gentler pace. Because they've learned that slowing down just might be the fastest way to grow old with grace. If you opened Dr. Barron's fridge, you wouldn't find anything fancy. No trendy superfoods, no protein powders, just real simple ingredients, chosen with intention, rooted in science, and guided by faith. He ate only 2 meals a day at 10 a.m. He'd sit down to breakfast, a bowl of whole wheat cereal with almond milk, sometimes topped with nuts or fresh fruit from his orchard. That was it. No sugar bombs, no greasy starts. Just fiber-rich fuel to nourish his heart and mind. Then at 4 p.m., his second and final meal, a colorful plate of vegetables, whole grains, legumes, and nuts, always plant-based, always clean, always healing. For over 50 years, Dr. Barron was a full vegan. Why? Because he believed with both heart and evidence that food was medicine. He often cited the Cleveland Clinic's findings, studies showing that a low-fat vegan diet could prevent and even reverse heart disease. He admired pioneers like Dr. Dean Ornish and Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, who proved it through science. Dr. Barron himself had a cholesterol level of just 117. "If I ever feel chest pain," he'd say with a grin, "I know it's not coronary disease. My cholesterol's too low for that." He warned about saturated fats from animal products, explaining how even casein, the protein in milk, could spike cholesterol levels. He spoke passionately about the dangers of added sugars, processed meats, and excessive oils. His message was simple but powerful. What you eat today becomes your body tomorrow. And he lived that truth every bite every day for over a century. In a world obsessed with diets that change every season, Dr. Barron followed one principle that never wavered. Eat from the earth, avoid what harms, let food heal you. There was only one supplement Dr. Barron ever took. Not collagen, not fish oil, not the latest miracle pill. Just vitamin B12. When he first considered going fully vegan, he hesitated. Would he miss anything essential? Would his body lack something critical? Then he discovered the solution, just a small daily dose of B12. That was it. I realized, he once said, that if I could get everything I needed from plants and just that one little vitamin, why wouldn't I? And so he never looked back. No complicated regimens, no overflowing pillboxes, just plants, water, sunlight, and one humble capsule. His blood work remained pristine, his heart strong, his mind clear, because sometimes health isn't about doing more, it's about doing less but doing it right. And for Dr. Barron, that meant trusting nature, trusting simplicity, and letting his body thrive with what it was truly made for. Dr. John Barron didn't set out to live past 100. He set out to live with purpose. And somewhere along the way, between the surgeries, the apple trees, the 5 a.m. sunrises, and the quiet meals shared with his wife, he built a legacy that no clock could measure. He taught us that life isn't about chasing time, it's about filling time with meaning. So the question isn't, how long will you live? The real question is, how deeply will you live while you're here? Will you love like he did? Move with intention? Rest without guilt? Eat with wisdom? Serve with your whole heart? Because if a man can heal thousands, raise a family, and walk with joy into his 100s, maybe we can too. Not by doing everything, but by doing the right things, one day at a time, one breath at a time, one choice at a time.